be screen two. I'm going to do. All right, so I'm gonna do it the non-show screen way when we get to videos because I do have videos, guys. Because for us to look at, for us to look at Genesis and the questions that are asked is like you hear the Bible's giving you a nutshell, sometimes a summary of what's taking place, but you have questions, especially living in a modern time and trying to make that particularly fit. God is one that provides miracles, but He's also one that's very logical. And He says, "Come, let us reason together." So the first thing we're going to do is go through the Bible, and then we're going to go through some archaeological finds, and then on top of that, we're going to go through some scientific studies. Where did Cain get his wife? So Genesis chapter 5, right? And looking at verse 4 and 5 is showing us that that Adam and Eve was the one that was populating the earth. It's not like he's going to have, one child super late, 130, and then going to have another child at 800. And that's the reason why there's a colon here, but to indicate that humanity was populated with Adam and Eve and with their offsprings. So now we go into Genesis chapter 5, and I'll read a little bit more for context, right? Because all of this gives genealogy of all of the kids, right? And this is going to help with us framing the ark, because one of the things was how do they have the tools to make such monumentous boat? And we said, "Behold, thou hast driven me from the face of the earth. From the face I shall be hid, and I shall be a fugitive." Who shall he be a fugitive to? Adam's sons and daughters, as well as Seth's sons and daughters, and potentially against his own children as well, right? So I hopped over to 5 to show where the context show that there were sons and daughters, the time frame of sons and daughters, but I skipped. This is where we stopped at 14, but I skipped the crucial component, which is going to help us to understand architecture, help us to understand tools and things of that sort, which is coming from the lineage of Cain, right? Genesis 4:15, and the Lord said unto him, and granted, Cain and his lineage wasn't the only ones that gave tools, but it gives us a foundation of what his lineage was able to produce in big ways that they were known for. Once again, we're doing highlights. So Genesis 14, and the Lord said unto him, therefore whosoever slayeth, vengeance shall be taken upon him sevenfold. And the Lord marked upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. Let's proceed. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on east of Eden. Now we go into the lineage and the children that was there. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch. And he builded a city and called the name of the city, the name of his son, Enoch. So now we have a declaration of cities being built, right? For a city to be built is not just an inhabitation of where people are, but their structure. There is some sort of building, and there's some sort of hierarchy established in there being a city. So we understand that we have cities, and it's being framed after Enoch. And then let's go to 18 so we can get an understanding of greater tools that was born. And Enoch was born in Irad, and Irad begot Mehusiel, and Mehusiel begot Methusiel, and Methusiel begot Lamech. Now Lamech is one where we have the introduction of polygamy, right? Lamech took upon him two wives. The name of one was Ada, and the name of the other was Zillah. And Ada bare Jabal. He was the father of such as dwelled in tents, right? So now we have the demarcation of there being a tent and tent structure, and of such as have cattle, right? So now we have grazing and livestock. It was there from before, but he was known to be like a nomad, all right, like his granddaddy. And his brother name was Jubal. He was the father of all such things, all such as handling the harp and organ. So now we have exposition on on instruments, right? He's just going through the contribution that the sons of Cain's have provided and the structure in which we now see this system coming about. And Gileal, she also bare Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron. And the sister Tubal-Cain was Naamah, right? So we have Tubal-Cain, which is an artificer of brass and iron. And this is where we have molding, so not only of instruments, right, but the making of tools, making of structures. Remember, these people were living, we got the context, and we also go into the context. So we get here in chapter 4, we get the context of tools, structures, cities, um, um, migration going on, right? Moving around, pitching tents like cattle, moving in different areas and ranges and populations. In Genesis chapter 5, we're getting the lifespan of what human beings were living like, right? We were getting their duration, how long they've been having kids for, right? Spans of 800 and change years of just being able to populate and populate and populate. Um, and then in chapter 6, which we will read, you'll start to see that, hey, it wasn't like, hey, Cain's children were out there doing their own thing, and then Seth kids and Adam's kids are out there doing their own thing. But there now comes an aspect of intermixing. We also get instruments, right? Musical and industrial, right? For tilling, growing, excavating, and growing cities. We get this creation. So now, when we look at Genesis, which goes into the question of the ark, how it being built, is it probable? Based off of the information we get from the Bible, we can see that there are tools. We can see that the men who are smart, pre-programmed from God, individuals who are living 900 years plus, right? And what they're able to do with that ingenuity and creativity that they have. Look at what we as human beings are able to create and do within the limited span of 100 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years. Now, when you compound that with people who are living longer and the things that they can get themselves into, you can have yourself structures. When you look at, like I was saying before, when you look at the pyramid, which is a modern wonder, like when you look at how high that monument was, they're like, man, how did they were able to move such great big stones, such great big sculptures? How are they able to have a panel and a passageway where air can flow, where it can be properly air conditioned, where air can circulate that a person won't be able to suffocate based off of its structures? These are modern marvels because men had knowledge and ingenuity. We even see it now, like a lot of the herbs and things of that sort that people from our background, or quote unquote indigenous people or individuals from other countries, were using to provide healing, that the Europeans did not have that particular mindset or knowledge to do because they didn't have that construct. They're now marveling at what was particularly done. And then I even gave attributes, not only looking at Egypt, but looking at the cisterns from Rome, how they had an aqueduct, right, that was able to commute water. How we seen in Babylon, which is Iraq and Iran, and other places where they had plumbing and water flowing systems, that the knowledge and ingenuity that man had is not limited based on the European knowledge and mindset, but it was something that man had because he was fearfully and wonderfully made, pre-programmed from God with high intelligence. Now, like I said, so 4 gives the layout and contributions and what enters into the world through the line of Cain, right? Then we have the time span and the years and who begot who and how many kids was begat by these individuals in Genesis chapter 5. And now in Genesis chapter 6, matter of fact, at the end of Genesis chapter 5, let me just go back real quick. Am I going too fast or are we together?
We together.
All right, cool. Now in Genesis chapter 5, right? Um verse 28, it says, and Lamech lived 182 years and begot a son, and he called his name Noah. This same shall confront us concerning our work and toil of our hands because of the ground which the Lord had cursed. And Lamech lived and begat Noah 508 and 5 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Lamech was 770 and 7 years, and he died. So we start to see this slow, it's still hundreds and hundreds of years, but we starting to see this degradation of lifespan. Genesis chapter 5, verse 32 says, and Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And now in verse 6, we have these intermingling, right? Remember, it said that Seth was created after his own kind. And it said, and it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God, remember, the sons of God is not the same sons of God that was indicated in Job. The sons of God was individuals that was out of earth, meeting at this foreground, and Satan say, "Hey, I'm representative of earth." In this case, we see that the sons of God. It makes sure that in Genesis chapter 4, as well as it makes sure in Genesis chapter 5, that Seth was tied and a reflection of Adam, right, or was made after Adam, and now we hear here that lineage. So these sons of gods and the sons of God saw the daughter. So these were individuals like Adam who were obedient to God's words, who was following his will, who was not being obedient to Satan, right? Who repented if they did wrong, who followed burnt offerings onto God, resembling the Messiah who is to come. Remember, we read in Genesis chapter 3 that he will bruise his head and he will crush his heel, which gives indication that, hey, there was a great anticipation that a Messiah would be born, and we have these sacrificial practices in reference to this Messiah being born, and we know that we have a lineage in through who they would be born through, which is the reason why Luke gives the lineage from Jesus all the way back to Adam, going through the line of Seth, to indicate that these were sons of God. So that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, and the daughters of men will be the line of Cain and the lineage of those who were being disobedient, that they were fair, they were pretty, that they took them as wives of all which they chose. And now we hear, so now we see that there is intermingling. We looked at the 144 and we talked about the wives and being pure and things of that sort. So now we see here that there's mixing. So not only are they traveling coast to coast, place to place, region to region, not only some are being nomadic, living in tents, living like gypsies. We also have some that are traveling and building cities. And now we see that, hey, there's now intermingling and intermixing of individuals who were obedient to God with individuals who wasn't. And this is what God says now. And the Lord said, my spirit, it shall not always strive with men, for that he is also, so that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. So we have an indication that, hey, with this long perpetual mindset, right, that there's disobedience, right? Now he's saying, hey, I'm gonna put things in place to start shorting down the lifespan of mankind.
Okay, so now I understand that.
Yeah. All right. And it says, okay, and it says that yeah, since they shall be 120 years, and they were giants in the earth. So the individuals, the skeletons, the archaeological finds, individuals like Goliath, we have here indication that human beings were all taller. Animals, human beings, they were all taller. There were giants in the earth in those days. And also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old men renowned or renowned, right? So they have wisdom, they have strength, right? And they're doing, and God saw that the wickedness of men was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart were only evil continually. So he didn't allow this degradation or the ark to come in the beginning. He saw that when there was evilness of the heart moving perpetually. Remember we were talking about the I think it was the first study, first or second study, and the question was asked, well, how do some people, we talked about forgiveness is provided for all, and they were like, how about some people who do evil or who done great feats that was crazy or horrendous? What about them? And it's showing here that when their hearts became evil continually, it's what we call the grieving of the Holy Spirit, right? There's no good in them. They're no longer pushing to do good. There's no longer a battle between good and evil, but it's more so them just wanting, they just coveting and giving up to doing evil perpetually. He has Noah, but Noah found grace in his eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah, was just a man and perfect in his generation, and Noah walked with God. And Noah begot three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And this is what we will do a deeper study in right here, the lineage of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and how we have the divisions of nations due to the diversity of melanin and hue from these three lineage. And remember, these boys, as we read, these mean the earth also was corrupt. God and the earth before the earth was also corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. Right? We're about to get into the dimensions of the ark, and then we're going to go into some archaeology, history, and science. And God said unto Noah, the end of flesh is come before me, for the earth was filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make me an ark of gopher wood. Rooms shalt thou make in the ark. So it's saying it's going to make rooms in the ark, and thou shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. So it's saying, hey, the inside and the outside is going to have pitch. Now, pitch
And
is something that was commonly made when it came to making boats. Gopher wood is like cypress, cedar, like cedar. Sorry, cedar. Cedar wood is a wood that can repel water. It's very slow in decaying. It can sustain itself. In America, the old Americans, their version of pitch is literally is tree sap, right? In North America, we would use pine, right? The early Americans would use pine, right? That's that sticky sap from the tree, and that's what would be used in between the grooves to ensure that water doesn't seep through. Right, so he's saying, hey, you're putting it on the outside, the exterior, and you're putting it on the interior. You are making rooms, and it's going to be out of a wood that does not decay or does not decay well or quickly. And this fashion which thou shalt make of it, the length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. Right? A window shalt thou make to the ark in a cubits. Right? So we indicate the windows shall make it the ark, and in cubits shalt thou finish it above. And the door of the ark shall thou set in the side thereof with a lower, second, and third stories shalt thou make it. So we have, sorry guys, so we have a 3-story arc, right? And we have it, the height 300, the length 300 cubits, and the height 30 cubics. And we'll get into what cubics look like in a minute. You had a question?
oh,
Okay. And behold, I will bring a flood upon the waters, the waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything in the earth shall die. Now, remember the root question that was asked is how could it have been constructed? Um, so we went through how it's constructed, right? We see the introduction of tools, we see the introduction of great cities, structures, hierarchy being made. We see that there is nomad. We see why there is evil that came about, and now we're going to go into the structure of the flood, and this is where we're going to take the next segment. And like I said, the lineage of Ham and the curse of Cain and all that, we're gonna do in a separate one. So do we understand? Do we understand? All right. So I'll go into the measurements, but we understand that the type of wood was cedar, which is like a strong. It's a very hefty, a strong wood. It doesn't rot well, so it can handle the duration of time that it was said. We understand that there was tools and there were already great monuments being done. We understand that the lifespan of humanity was a lot longer than it was now, and with that, they were always tinkering, structuring, creating in form of arts, in forms of recreation, in forms of industry, as in industrial. So we see here, based off of God's words, that Noah and his sons would have had the tools and the mindset to be able to create if they're creating cities, right? And we also know that there's a Tower of Babel, which was also a high structure. And then we also have things that was still considered ancient times, where we see great tools like the pyramids and like other monuments that was throughout the world, Iraq, Iran, where they were able to move mountainous structures and actually apply Greenlands and water flowing and plumbing in a region in a region of the world where that wasn't normal. So we see the ingenuity of mankind, and we see the time span of mankind, and we see the hierarchy giving credit to who created what, to know that this was practically infeasible. Now, now, Heavenly Father, yes, thank you. Now we're gonna go, and I'm gonna play. I'm gonna so we did Genesis 5:32. We did transition to the ark. Oh, let's. There's one more thing I'll add in regards to its structure of the ark, which we only find in Genesis chapter. Where is it? Here we go. In Genesis chapter 8:13, and in Genesis chapter 8:13, it just indicates that there is a canopy. So this is 7. Let's go to 8. And let's go to 13. All right. And it came to pass in the 601st year, in the first month, in the first day of the month, the waters dried up from the earth. Now, this is not how long it didn't take 600 years, but it's giving you a chronological time frame of Moses around his age, right? And then the day, the region. And it says the water were dried up from off the earth. Noah removed the covering of the ark. So I just wanted us to see here that there was a covering indicated, right? And that's going to be important once again for archaeological structure, as well as for airflow for human beings to have, as well as multi-purpose, which we will now get into. All right, and I can now minimize this. And like I said, family, I'm going to send you this link directly when we're finished, right? What I want us to see here is that this is this is a structure where you would actually have um, the dimensions. I'll get into what the cubic is like. So the range of it is anywhere from 313 to 460. And the reason why I say the region is when you look at the definition of a cubic, right? A cubic is measured from elbow to the tip of your hands. Right now, who would measure what a cubic is was always determined by who was the ruler nation. So they to pay homage to the king, they'll do measurements by the king, right? So on average, some it would be around 18 to 20. In rare certain cases, you had a short king where it would be measured between 12. So now we're going to go through the archaeological breakdown of the particular region. And then I'm going to give us an assignment that I really think that we can probably check out in the future. So you'll find some individuals doing the cubit measurement. Some people will use Egyptian measurement, which was prominent, and some would probably do like the a range of who was ruling at that time to get a difference. But roughly, you get 450 feet. Some say 330. Some will say a little bit more, and then you have a 75 depth. Right now, in this picture here, right, I just wanted you to see. All right, so here is a wooden ship, right, the Santa Maria, right, and the Wyoming, right. So you have the Wyoming, which is a wooden ship, a wooden structure. It has sails, and it's around the range of 300 and change feet if you want to just do body, right? Now you'll have the Titanic, which is about 800 feet, and then you have the Queen Mary, which is a naval ship, which is around 1,100 foot. And you know that there are many cruises, right? But you get into metal structures. We wanted to stay around the wooden structures, right? All right. So like I said, you'll have some individuals that will say it's 330. You'll have some individuals up to 500. You have some that will say around 450 because they're measuring cubits differently, being open and transparent. But I'll show you even with the 300 how that works a little bit later. So once again, you get the arc. Like I said, some individuals here, and this one was by the Lagos Bible, reconstructing what it was. A lot of people believe it's in Mount Ararat, and I'll show you in a little bit what that looks like and why they sought Mount Ararat, what they found around Mount Ararat. And as you can look, Mount Ararat is above Iran and is on the eastern regions of Turkey, on the tail end skirt of where Turkey is. So we're still having that region in which this is happening, right? And then remember, in the Bible, if you would have kept reading, we would have read that Noah, his wives, Noah's sons, and their wives. And there's a big comment about diversity. We already know diversity from the boys, but like I said, we'll look at that into a different study. But this is the dimensions, right? 75 feet wide, the ship, 45 feet high, and 3 stories. And there is some sort of structure that was taken off when the flood occurred. Read ourselves that it was 3 stories in this ship, right? So here you'll find that, the volume, when you do the math, when you do the combination, it's 1,396 square feet when looking at that combination. And when you look at that, it's about 14,000 tons, right? And we know, I don't know if any of you guys dealt with the shed. I did a greenhouse, and that was just beams and posts and a roof. Then you can see that it gets really heavy. Working in the garage, you can see those wood definitely adds up. And remember, there Noah is not Noah is not building this ark in a year, right? He
Mhm.
has 120 years in which he's preaching to individuals and letting individuals know, hey, it's time. Please repent. So while he's doing it, he's working. Imagine how people working together, like I said in the past, was able to build a monumental structure. Imagine you building this over a span of 120 years. And it's not you by yourself, right? It's possible with a set of 8 individuals over 120 years that this can be done, right? Some people will say maybe he had help or assistance, right? But they just didn't believe, just like how some people will work or employ. But either way, when you're looking at 120 years to build a structure that is um, um, 35 feet high, 500 feet long, or 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, that it particularly is possible when you're looking at a span that's from older than grandma. You know what I mean? Older than Hazel, right? When you're looking at that span with that diligence and what they're able to accomplish, and as a set of 8, it's something that can be done. Once again, we're going to the probability because what is questioned is the probability of the information. This is a place that mom went to with me. It's called the Ark Encounter. This is an actual life-size replica of the boat. So it's in Tennessee, and there's this guy from Australia, had a lot of funding, partnered up with some other guys to say, hey, let us build a life-size replica of the boat. and let us show that it is possible of what can be stored. Guys, 100%. I mean, I am so willing. If you guys, we can make a trip out of it. Another thing I want to say was, when it comes to flood outside of the Bible, there are over 500 flood legends. Some people will say 200 because some archaeologists will mark regions, whereas some people will mark continents, right, or sections of continents, countries, right. So some will say over 200 flood legends, some will say over 500. Here were just some of them. The Hawaiians have a flood, whereas long after the death of Kunma, the first man, the world became wicked and terrible place. There was one good man left. His name was Nunu, right? And he made a great canoe with a house on it and filled it with animals. The waters came up. And this is, like I said, this is just examples of so many people throughout different countries, throughout our world, that have a flood story just like we do, which solidifies the fact that, hey, you have all these different regions from all these different places, from all these different time periods. This is the Aztecs, the Aztec Indian, all right, specifically the Toltec from Mexico, from ancient Mexico, where they found this flood story in 1716, right? Indicating that it was Coxcox that survived. Another one was from the Asian. And yo, there's a video that I'm watching. I don't have time to really do a study on it, but it talks about when we had the different gods in China. When did it come? Which was literally 5th century, 5 years after Christ. Is either 5 years after Christ or 5 years before it, and that they actually had a monolithic religion before that. It's so deep. I'm gonna finish checking it out first, and then I'll share it with you guys.
Daddy, there was like the examples, and there was a box one, and if you were like in the box or these like types, you would
Yes.
drown.
So this is some of the stuff that she's talking about in regards to structure and how it kind of aligns with what the Bible was saying. Um, but we will definitely get into that. This imagery here is just the imagery of showing where people believe that it was Mount Arawak where the boat was. And there are some examples of why they believe that it was Mount Arawak where it landed. And I just pulled out the map just so that you can see what Mount Ararat was, right? So we have Africa, we have Egypt, right? Cairo, we have Israel, right? Then we go into Lebanon. We have Iran, the regions of Iran over here, and this demarcation. This is Iraq, Iran, Mount Ararat, which is on the tail end of where Turkey was. Now, when we go there, right? You see individuals will say once again that 500 or 500 feet. Looking at the Egyptian cubit, I'll make this bigger so that you guys can see. When you look at the Egyptian cubic was about 20.6 inches. So when using the Egyptian cubic and then taking the 300 cubic, right, you get the span of where they found an impression around this area, Mount Ararat. Another thing that they had was called draw stones. Now, remember the premise of the boat, right? Because some people will say, "Oh, something that long can't handle; it wouldn't be able to suffice." There were ancient ships that was longer than 500 feet. There were ancient Asian ships, to be accurate, that were way longer than 500 feet. And with the bends and the twists, it would be tough for some of the sails to survive and hold on. But when you look at it, the aim of the ark was not to sail. The aim of the ark was to float. It was a container to hold and keep individuals safe. Around Mount Ararat, they found what is called a drought stone, right? And with the drought stones, they found 12 of them. Now, what was unique about this stone, they archaeologists looked at it, they did research on it, but all of these 10 to 12 stones had holes in them. And you can tell that they were man-made hew stones in them. And what the drought stones helps to do is it helps to provide stabilization. So here they found a place in Mount Ararat is around 515 feet, which kind of ties into the archaeological find of it being 20.6 inches if you're following the Egyptian measurement of what a cubit was. And around it, you're finding 12 of these hand-hewed man-made stones that when they tested the weights was around 9,000 pounds. Now let's see in a live reenactment. Now this was from National Geographic, and they intentionally cut this segment out on the release that they did on their channel. Right? Let me see if I have that next. Yes, I do. Right? So this is them doing the test, and this was National Geographic's 2009 archaeology when they found the archaeological finds, and they wanted to prove if the theory of the ark would work based off its height, its dimensions, and applying stones. Right, and like I said, once again, family, I'm sending you this link, so that means they're all clickable. They're all clickable. The Bible passages are not there because, like I said, we had this conversation yesterday, and from yesterday, I'm doing this presentation today. Right, but I will add those and I'll share that with you, or I'll see the link and then I'll update that so you can click on the Bible passages, or you can just pull out your Bible and follow it along, seeing that the passages are there. So I'm going to click on this now so that we can watch it. And when it plays, just let me know if you can hear it. I'm going to turn my volume.
This 19th century painting by Edward Hicks and the basic dimensions taken from Genesis in the Bible have given Day and his team inspiration to build motion detection cameras will record the model ark's behavior in the water using stability markers at the back of the ship.
Now, this kind of test that we're doing here, we're mostly interested in the motions of the vessel. Trouble now. It's going. It's going to go. There it goes.
So now we're going to go with
More and more water comes in, and the boat just progressively.
They put drought stones in their replica so that individuals can see. And here's some of the proof or finds from the archaeology. I showed imagery of that already, but that's what it looks like.
In 1977, Ron Wyatt discovered these strange stones. Based on his knowledge of ancient Egyptian boats, he thought these stones could have been tied beneath the hull, the hanging weights keeping the ark steady in rough water. As the flood receded, Wyatt believed Noah cut them loose, and they fell here.
What we believe happened with these stones here, as the ship would roll and pitch, this would swing back and forth and up a little bit as the ship would pitch and roll, similar to a shock absorber in your car. And it's slowing down that momentum that would be created from that. So quite amazing that Noah's Ark would use that kind of technology.
Okay. So now this is with the stones inside.
To find out whether Noah's supposed technology works, Day has added weights beneath the model ark. This time, he's programmed in even bigger waves.
Now that, without the deck, would definitely have been over.
Amazingly, the ark survives the giant wave impact. The stabilizing anchors have worked. Without them, the ark would have turned over.
Right now, that once again, that was moved from the original National Geographic 2009 video. You actually had to get the DVD to get the director's cut, which is kind of weird. The second thing, or the last thing we'll talk about, is the airflow and circulation, because I do see the time. And I'm going to, so we can see how it can be able to survive the wind and the aggressive storms with the drought stones, which was, once again, as they indicated, a common practice that they saw in ancient Egyptian times that was applied. So once again, we're looking at thousands of years old technology being used. Now let's talk about the airflow and circulation. There's something called moon pools. They were also used in ancient Asian ships, right? So this is not a new technology, but this is stuff that they actually still do use now for large ships, so that as the waves move, that the ship won't twist and turn, especially in midpoints and different sections of the ship. Its intention is to have the water rise up to reduce stress. So this one would be one that we will say is a particular concept, and the next one that I'll show you would be a particular concept. But everything else that we've shown, there's there's a lot of support for it being the case. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, like I said, in Answers in Genesis, which is the Ark Encounter, there's two places. One is Answers in Genesis is the name of the religious organization, and what they do is they'll take stories from the Bible, and they will look at archaeological finds, and they will look at and science to say, hey, the probability of these things occurring and how. So here is what is called the moon pool concept, right? And it's just going through the diagram, but I have a video to show you particularly what that looks like. And like I said, this video is clickable. This is part of their 8-part series, and they'll have scientists and archaeologists go through it, and they'll show how it probably could have happened for 8 individuals to be able to manage, right? And then the last thing we'll talk about is the kinds of animals, which there is much support for that. It's not a concept thing or a scientist trying to piece things together thing. And then I'll finish.
Previously on the Genesis account of Noah's Ark, we answered several questions such as how many individual animals were on the ark, what size were they, and how food for them could have been provided during their voyage. Join us now as we continue answering the numerous practical objections to the idea of how things work with only 8 people caring for all of the animals' needs on board the ark, including drinking water, light requirements, ventilation, and waste management, in Part 8 of the Genesis account of Noah's Ark. Water has always been at the heart of any civilization, and it would have been a central concern for the small group of men and women on board Noah's Ark, especially considering the numerous animals on board that would have depended on them for the life-sustaining liquid. It would have been cisterns, earthen vessels, or other waterproof containers. In addition to this, using the Ark's roof surface as a massive rainwater collection device would combine elements of sustainability, redundancy, and efficiency, especially if the water could be channeled into overhead cisterns for storage and distribution as needed. This would have resulted in an ongoing, largely self-sustaining watering system. Methods for distributing water in the various areas throughout the Ark, for example, amphibian containers, small animal cages, large animal enclosures, and human living spaces, may have varied. It would have been unnecessarily laborious and time-consuming for the family members to carry large containers of water around all day. Instead, utilizing a simple system of fixed pipes and spigots would permit easy access to water from the animal pens, living quarters, and other areas. Bamboo is a practical natural material for this task, being strong, lightweight, easily cultivated, and very hardy and resistant to degradation. It also comes in the perfect shape. But we can leave open the option of using more advanced materials as well. Recall, the pre-flood world was not primitive. Aside from the water collection and distribution systems, each animal cage could have been equipped with a simple, appropriately sized, vacuum-fed water container, similar to those that are still used in animal cages today, though possibly crafted as specialized earthen vessels. Such a design would accomplish significant time and labor savings, particularly for larger animals. Though working in 2-person teams is often the most efficient arrangement, utilizing easy-to-use, partially automated systems would mean that single tasks would not always require the attention of both individuals. And of course, this would have been crucial since the Ark contained only 8 laborers. For example, in large animal enclosures, bamboo or wood chutes leading to a food dish could have been filled from an overhead catwalk. External chutes leading to interior food trays could have also been used in small animal cages, greatly accelerating the feeding process. Now, on to an objection brought about as literal byproducts of our discussion. How could only 8 people have dealt with the resultant huge piles of daily waste? It's a simple but unpleasant fact of life, and a legitimate question. Both humans and animals produce liquid and solid waste. And without an effective management system for removal of this waste from living areas, people and animals can sicken and eventually die. Put a large number of animals with 8 people in a closed environment like the Ark for about a year during the flood, and it's a huge challenge that would have had to been addressed before the journey began. It's inevitable that there would have been a solution on board the ship for a number of reasons. 1, the design of the vessel wasn't meant for either crew or animals to be walking about the roof of the Ark, at least not while it was afloat. Roof and causing other sanitation would not have wanted to pollute it with sewage. 4. The amount of labor it would take to remove the waste using various types of manual labor alone would have been difficult, but manageable. The system solutions for human waste and animal waste could have been completely different, but they may have had a common collection point and labor-reducing method of removal from the ship. Of course, factoring in the sizes, number, and estimated metabolisms of the projected 6,658 Ark animals, it's likely that the daily solid waste production of the Ark reached a few tons. Now, human contributions in comparison would have been quite negligible. The Ark Encounter designs show Noah's family using carts and small wagons to move the solid animal waste. And while this sounds like a lot of work, it would have been manageable for 8 healthy adults. Some manual cleaning would be expected even with solutions built into the cage or enclosure designs, but the design features of the enclosures could have made the waste removal task much simpler. For example, sloped floors or designs that incorporated slatted floors could have been used, and the latter would have permitted waste to slip through and collect below. Large animal enclosures, on the other hand, are typically designed with flat and solid floors, since slatted floors can result in leg or foot injuries. Concerning liquid waste, collection points funneling into bamboo pipes could have moved urine and excess water away from the enclosures, and each enclosure complex could have been connected to a central wastewater collection tank. While the inclusion of bedding often increases animal comfort, storing and appropriately distributing it takes a lot of space and effort. Thus, it may have been deemed unnecessary for the year-long stay aboard the Ark. One significant pool. A moon pool is essentially a large cavity running from the bottom of the ship to the upper deck or roof. Now, even though the moon pool is open to the ocean, the water is confined within its interior, moving up and down like a piston of an engine. The Ark Encounter's designers proposed 2 moon pools in the stern, straddling the keel. One pool they designed for ventilation, as the in and out movement of the water acts like a massive bellows, circulating fresh air throughout the Ark. The other was designed as an integral part of the waste removal system, exploiting the moon pool's secure access to the waters outside the Ark. Such designs would have been essentially low-tech but highly effective. Now, while it may not receive as much attention as the other solutions, lighting surely played a key role in life on the Ark. Whether providing an energy source for growing supplemental plants or making it easier to complete chores in the depths of the ship, it was essential that methods be found for all the lighting needs on the Ark. Roof panels could have been raised and lowered so that natural light would be utilized on the Ark. We're not sure what the covering was that Noah opened, mentioned in Genesis 8:13, but if it was a roof that was translucent or could be drawn back, then this could have allowed light to fill the Ark. Of course, oil lamps or other simple technologies like wax candles could have easily been used to light the interior, as has been done for thousands of years. But we need to ask, is this how they actually did it? It's easy to let your imagination wander when it comes.
And that's where he's going in regards to the aspect of, concept and what concept looks like. What you was about to say, Brenda?
Nothing.
You sure?
I thought it was only a family on the Ark.
A family of 8. It was Noah, his son Ham, Shem, Japheth, Noah's wives, and his sons' wives. That would make a team of 8. The last thing that people will say was, how can all of these animals fit in the Ark? I'm only going to play one, and this is something that we talked about yesterday, Brenda, which is that it said that there was kinds, those who had the breath of God. Now, if you're on a boat, sea animals don't need to be there, and insects doesn't need to be there, right? Because insects, well, I'll let this short component play out. Open up for any questions that I'll take notes to do for the next video, because I do see the time, and then we will pick it up.
100 years old when he built that boat. Okay, he's probably smart enough to figure out you don't have to bring the biggest ones you can find. Okay, you bring 2 babies. Just be sure to get a pink one and a blue one. That'll be important later. Okay, there are all kinds of reasons for bringing babies on the Ark. Okay, you bring babies because they're smaller. Well, duh. You know the biggest dinosaur egg is smaller than a football. You bring babies because they weigh less, they eat less, they sleep a lot more, they're tougher. You know, kids fall down and bounce and get up and keep running. Adults fall down and break or lay there for a while. Plus, you bring babies because after the flood, they're going to live longer to produce more offspring, and that's the reason you're bringing them. Why on earth would you bring big elephants on the Ark? I mean, that would be stupid for multiple reasons, okay? Why would you bring big giraffes? Just bring babies of everything, young ones. And God told him to bring 2 of every sort. Not 2 of every species. 2 of every sort. He said bring them after his kind, after their kind, after his kind, after his kind. I mean, the Bible's, real clear on the topic. You bring the kinds of animals, not the species. And you only have to bring those in whose nostrils was the breath of life, and only those on dry land. Noah did not have to bring any fish on the ark. They had plenty of water outside, okay? He also did not have to bring any bugs on the ark because bugs don't have nostrils. Bugs breathe through their skin, through spiracles. Insects were not required to be on the ark. Insects can survive a flood just fine. Go any place where there's been a flood, after the water goes down, walk out into the mud and tell me the first thing you notice. Bugs by the bazillions, right? Yeah, insects did not have to go on there. Some of them might have been on there, but they didn't have to be. Noah did not take 400 pairs of dogs on the ark. Noah probably never saw a chihuahua in his life. The horse and the zebra had a common ancestor, like this Mexican textbook says. And I would agree, the horse and the zebra had a common ancestor, but it looked like a horse, okay? 4-wheel drive, genuine leather upholstery, I mean, all the horse equipment, okay? Skeptics say, how did Noah fit those millions of animals onto the ark? Well, in the first place, he only brought land animals, okay? Secondly, you bring those with nostrils, no bugs. Thirdly, you bring babies. Now, that's just plain old common sense, right? Fourthly, you bring 2 of each kind, not every single variety. And since God made the kinds, and God told Noah how big to build the boat, I bet God had it kind of figured out, about what size to make it, Plus, how many were there? Many experts will tell you there are about 8,000 basic kinds of animals in the world. 8,000 basic kinds of animals. Noah had 2 of each kind, now 7 of some, I understand, but plenty of room on the ark for that. Some atheists say, well, Adam could never name all those animals in one day. Oh, come on. When I get excited, I can speak 350 words a minute. At 300 words a minute, you can name all the animals in 26 minutes. Dog, cat, elephant, aardvark, hamster. I mean, come on, it's not a big deal. Plus, you got to figure, Adam had an extremely high IQ. I mean, he came straight from the hand of God, fully programmed. He could speak every language in the world. Well, there's only one, okay? I mean, the guy could walk, talk, name all the animals, and get married first day. This guy's super high IQ, okay? No problem naming all the animals in a half hour. Okay, what's next, all right? What else you got for me, God? Plus, how big was the ark? I have atheists that I debate all the time. They'll say, well, Noah could never put all those animals on the ark. I say, really? How many were there? They say, well, we don't know. Oh, well, how big was the boat? Well, we don't know. All we know is he couldn't do it. Oh, I see. Is that the way this works? Okay.
I wanted us to see that it is probable, and that a lot of the questions that some individuals have, there's not only the biblical support, but there's also logic and reasoning to show how it is possible and how it is probable.